Let's move on to a schema question. Schema.org, while an impressive set of standards, can often update slowly and tries to fit, and sometimes you try to fit it into specific categories that doesn't really fit. This makes for a frustrating work for SEOs trying to fill in a vaguely relevant content just to eliminate warnings in Google Search Console. Would Google ever consider publishing guidelines around where their view of structured data differs from schema.org, or share how they think about valid versus with warnings, or compared to valid in terms of just understanding SEO in general? I don't know if it's a question for Daniel, but
I mean, we always say that, you know, all the schema that we work with is on the developer documentation, right? So the developer documentation is there are other stuff on schema.org, but the stuff that we, I forgot the word in English, that we support is what we publish on the dev side. I mean, there could be a comparison between what's available on schema.org and what's available on dev side. I don't know if we should do that, but I mean, it's very clear that the official stuff that we support is on the dev side. Now, in terms of the warnings on Search Console, it's also something we know that people cannot solve all the warnings and errors, and it's not that, I mean, you have to solve, they're not, I know that maybe just bothers the eyes of people, that, you know, they're looking and there are those warnings that they cannot solve and they cannot dismiss, but it's just like they are warnings and errors that we see. And I mean, if there should be a button to archive warnings, I don't know, dismiss warnings, I don't know, that's what, I mean, what would you suggest? I mean, if there is a warning that is on Google Search Console, what would you like to do with it if you can't solve it?
Ignore
Alexis, I can see you have an opinion, a strong opinion about it.
No, I mean, no, I agree with you completely. Like, the documentation clearly outlines everything that Google supports. So usually what I do is I'll just look up Google event schema. You can really pick any one that you know Google supports, pull up the documentation, look at all the data types on the right-hand rail, and then you have all that information there of what they support. If you wanted to look at the full schema.org, I would just look at schema.org full hierarchy, and you'll get a list of everything that is out there in schema world, but maybe might not being used by anybody at Google. I agree that it kind of sucks when you can't solve some of the warnings. So it could be nice to have like an ignore feature, but maybe for now, for the person that asked it, just have like a mental ignore for those, any ones that you know you can't fix. So just use it to, you know, be as something to be aware of, but, you know, not something that you have to stress out about.
I think Google forgets that they are dealing with a bunch of people that have real OCD things, for myself, you know. And sometimes you just want to say, I know about this, leave me alone. I want it to be like this, just, you know. So,
100%.
yeah, you are, all SEOs have like OCD by default. I think I speak for a bunch of them.
It's also like scary because I think there's like an exclamation point inside of a triangle. And when you see that, you're like, whoa, like something's wrong. Like I blew it up, I missed something, but it's like, it's just a warning, like everything's fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like a lot of the times you'll see, like, let's say you're pitching a client and they got a report from another SEO agency that they're talking to, and it's like, oh, you have X warnings in Google Search Console or the structured data testing tool. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have warnings. It's like the word warning is just inherently scary. So maybe they could relax the messaging a little bit at Google. Just an idea. What's more dental than warnings? I don't know. Maybe just some messaging about I think it says this, but like warnings are not something that's going to prevent your schema from being displayed properly or whatever. But
yeah, also
warning.
You can also check in the rich snippets testing tool to see if stuff shows up, or searching Google, and that's probably the best way to check. if a snippet's showing up. It's not showing up for you, it's probably not showing up for anybody else.